Welcome to Working Dog Radio.
Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Eric and Ted hanging out here on different parts of the country, Oklahoma and Ohio. It is May 23rd right now, and flipping been raining for several days here, but I just got back.
You too?
Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend, and there won't be much stuff, but I won't be here. I leave in the morning for Texas. I just got back yesterday from Michigan doing my e-collar class up there, Sterling Heights. It's only about a 4-hour drive, so it's pretty cool. I leave first thing in the morning to Texas. My wife flew out first thing this morning, so I was up at 3:45 to drive her to the airport. She's down there with our son and his fiance and our grandson. So I'm going down there. I had to judge a canine competition today in Akron. So I stayed here, did a little bit of detection stuff, and then I leave in the morning. I'll be down in Texas all week, also teaching a e-collar class Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So spend some time with the family, staying at my son's house, going to drive his Tesla down there to the training every day, and hang out in Frisco is where the seminar is going to be. So it's
nice.
Yeah, it's like 15 teams and 2 or 3 audit spots. So it'll be good. It's not going to be 58 and raining. I can tell you that. It will be a little bit warmer. What's going on in Oklahoma?
Same thing. It's been raining for an entire week. I was in Pennsylvania, and ironically enough, we were up in Scranton with our buddy Joe. And we were up in Scranton Wilkes Barre, and it was 90 degrees. It was ridiculous. It was so hot. We did an HRD up there, had some really nice teams. And then before that, I was at the DLE thing, seminar or certification / seminar in Iowa, and there's some nice dogs there. Like
There's a lot.
Yeah, and you wouldn't, and even the handlers, like a lot of guys were almost like super apologetic to me and Ray. They're like, oh, we're just a small department. I was like, you need to not think that way. I get it. You're not, in LA, and you don't have 8,000 criminals that live around you, but still, there are 8 million criminals that live around you, but still, stuff still happens here. And clearly, we had one of the, I'm not going to mention from where, but one of the guys, like the week before the seminar, had a bite that was pretty eventful. The body cam was wild. Like a dude's cell phone blew up in his pocket, and it was insane. Dog still had chemical burns on his face when he showed up at the station.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Tell people what DLE is.
So DLE is another national certifier, like NAPWADA, NNDDA, USPCA. It's another one of those organizations. We're actually going to have John Ivey on too, who's kind of like the guy. He's also, God, he's going to kill me when he comes on, because I want to say he's 60 or close to it, and still running.
I ain't guessing ages, buddy.
Dude,
it's like
he's
guessing girls' weight. Are you kidding me?
But he's still running a dog down in Houston, which is like, I always kind of talked to him about. I was like, dude, seriously? And I think he runs it for Houston Transit. So we're going to have him on. We're going to nail down everybody's schedule, though, between you and me and everybody's guests, and kind of running around like a chicken with their head cut off. You did an episode with Cameron Ford, which, depending on when this one comes out, we're going to post it as well.
It's pretty good.
So actually, we'll probably put this one up first, and then we'll do that. What did you guys talk about?
Well, actually, he put it up today on YouTube, so we probably put that one up first.
Okay, so
we talked about, so I just hijacked his podcast and started asking him questions. And the original topic was about rewarding for sniffing behavior in blank rooms. So we ended up, rabbit hole in a couple different things. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good discussion. I honestly had, it was honest questions from me that I wasn't trying to guide an interview. I was asking him because I didn't know. I was trying to learn some stuff. And I've already, since we recorded it, I've already implemented a couple things to mix it up in the training, doing more blanks, or doing blanks a little bit different, and the amount of odors a little bit different. So we talked about, the blank behavior stuff, maybe building in an all done, like a using your search command as a start, using something as an all done, especially for dogs that are a little over threshold, like in between rooms or in between vehicles, almost as a form of capping in some of them. And then we talked about things that cause what I call bookmarking, which is when a dog finds odor, clearly finds it, and then says, I'll be back. Let me go see if there's a different odor or another hide or something more. And we talked about like 2 or 3 or 4 different things that we believe cause that. Some of
That's the question that people ask a lot of times is, especially, dogs that are imprinted on multiple odors, whether narcotics or explosive or whatever, if they have a quote unquote favorite odor.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we talked about, that's I guess would be a guess or an assumption maybe on sometimes that the dog is doing that, because I guess if you document it and really paid attention, you could see the dog only does it on meth and he doesn't do it on coke, and he, whatever, maybe likes coke a little bit better, but it's also a byproduct, we think, of doing too many odors on a training day all the time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 odors. If you're doing explosives, a lot more odors. So the dog's like, there's more. I know. I'll come back. Or is it a situation where the dog's like, I don't want to alert just yet because maybe I'm going to get back in the car. I don't want to be back in the car. I've been in there for 2 hours. I'm going to, and that's, again, it makes sense. All of it makes sense. So it just, changed up some things with the guys and I had started doing more blanks over the last year, couple years, 2, 3 years, but now, and he gets into, you have to listen to the show. He gets into some legal stuff. It's pretty good. It's pretty good explanation of things you need to be able to prove on your dog. So it was good. I liked it.
Cool. So tonight we have somebody actually I've interacted with for years on social media, but I finally got to meet him at the DLE thing. He was one of the master trainers running a station at the DLE cert in Iowa. So I guess we met halfway, right, Tony? Because you're in Canada and I'm in Oklahoma. So yeah, so go ahead and lean forward a little bit for me so we can hear you better. So today with us from Canada is Tony Pallota. Tony, how are you?
I'm good. Glad
Yeah,
to be
man.
here. Thank you.
So for those that don't know you,
Tony put some miles on his fans, man.
I do see, like, I kind of like scrolled through your timeline and saw, I was like, God damn, this dude travels almost as much as Eric does. So
but he's driving, I'm flying at least.
Yeah. So Tony, give us a little bit of your background for those people that don't know you. Tell us, how we got to this conversation. So how about it?
Oh, sure. So once again, my name is Tony Pallota. I operate a small training facility called Working Canine, and I've been at this for about 34 years now. Started out, as most do, in the Schutzen game, and just always had a desire to learn more and advance. Spent some time in the Netherlands and in Europe, Italy, Austria, and just had some real good fortune of having some really awesome mentors that I sort of was able to pull a lot of different information, different philosophies from. And yeah, it's just lifelong journey. I'm really into everything dog. There isn't just one thing that I'm into. I love everything from herding dogs, detection work. We're working a lab with invasive species. So anything that pushes the envelope is something that has always appealed to me. So I like to tinker and look at philosophies and try to find better ways to get things done. So I think through the years, we probably come across each other because of this journey that we're all on, trying to figure out, what the right dog training systems are. The Bible of dog training hasn't been written yet, so we're all there to figure it out and share information. And yeah, I like to see different dogs from different areas and see what kind of problems we can work on and fix and get a better product.
Hey everybody, this episode and every episode is brought to you by our good friends, the Perkinsons down at Highland Canine. If you've been with us for a while, listened to every show, you've heard us talk about Highland, how they offer handler schools. You can buy green dogs, you can buy pre-trained dogs. They have a dog trainer school, school for dog trainers. It's amazing. But what they're really getting out in front of is the online courses. So if you're having trouble getting your agency to send you places to train, you have two options. You can get on Highland Canine, canine spelled out, highlandcanine.com, and look up some of their online courses. And guess what? They've given us a discount code for the online courses, HK930 for 30% off. HK930, 30% off their online courses. But also, if you don't want to do it online, you can host them. You can host them at your place. It's crazy. They'll come to you. You don't even have to go anywhere. You can just roll out of bed, go to work, and everybody else can come in and train at your place. Just reach out to them at Police Canine, K9, at highlandcanine.com, highlandcanine.com, or call 704-500-6810. So 34 years ago, was it still Schutzen? So you started when it was still Schutzen, right?
Schutzen, DPG, it was, yeah.
Yeah, why do they keep changing it, man? What is it now?
I don't think it's IGP now, but I don't think they can figure it out.
Yeah.
It's the only one that keeps changing every so many years.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain. I don't and I know there's a ton of politics at play in it, which I have zero desire to deal with. But in fact, Balabanov, I was following him. I don't know if it's his fiance or somebody, like one of the Bulgarians just won the world championships last week. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's one thing we've always said about him, about Balabanov, is like any trainer or handler that dude touches ends up doing really well at the world level. Super gifted instructor, you can't deny that. Yeah, I've instructed with him in person several times, and he's the real deal for sure. So 34 years, and like we were talking before we started recording, when you do these seminars at like DLE and the one you go to is the Waleco thing, the huge one up in Wisconsin, which Eric, you've been to that one, right?
Yeah, I went there last year.
Yeah.
That thing's big, man, and very well run, great organization. You know, almost everybody in Wisconsin belongs to it. Like they're strong, like real strong.
Yeah. But kind of your thing is kind of problem solving. So I figured, like, while we had you on here, because the three of us have like on a yearly basis, just a 365-day rolling calendar, see a ton of dogs from the vast spectrum of the continent. And it seems like there's some reoccurring trends, both in terms of time and in terms of location, with like stuff that I see in terms of the stuff that needs to be fixed. Which, I think HRD now we're up to 2,600 teams or something. And Eric, you're at several grand, I think, now with your e-collar thing.
Yeah,
so,
we got a lot coming through.
So, I think we have between the three of us, we have a pretty good handle on like what in all areas of the country. Like there's not like a region that none of us haven't touched, at least one of us. So it'd be kind of interesting to kind of take like the top 3 or 4 common problems we see, and then kind of how we diagnose them, and then how we start working through because we're only there for anywhere from 2 to 4 days or something. So I can't fix a lot of those problems in that amount of time. I can kind of change the stream a little bit and point them in the right direction. So yeah, Tony, why don't you give us like one of the most common things that you see at one of your stations? So like for those listening, if you go to these DLE conferences, they do certifications first, and then they have a couple of different breakout deals where you can go do some scenario-based training. You can go do some problem solving. They have a competition, like the detection competition stuff for both narcotics and explosives. So there's all kinds of other shit going on. I think when I was in Iowa, there was a lot of teams. I don't know.
Yeah, it's over 100 each time.
It was like 120. Yeah, it was a lot of teams. So yeah, Tony, give us like your, in the last couple of years, the number one kind of thing, like, hey, I really need to work on blah, and like how we start diagnosing the problem. And then it'd be kind of interesting to talk about how we think that problem starts, and then how we kind of remedy it.
Well, you know, most commonly, the number one thing that you experience, at least at my stations, um, there's the most common, and then there's the one that strikes me as the most important. So outing is always a thing,
Right.
right? But the one that I look at most as the bigger problem. I mean, obviously, hard outing is, it's an option, but I think handler aggression is a big one, and I think that it's almost more important than the outing problem, because I know obviously we need to be able to out our dogs, but just so many handlers struggling with handler aggression from the dogs coming up the line, and handlers just getting nuked, just taking the dog out of the squad. So that's something that I think is pretty evident to me as a major problem. And one of the things that I don't know if you guys would agree. I mean, outing is definitely the most common, but I think most important for me is handler aggression, and the lack of trust between handler and dog, and the lack of physical manipulation in the development of the dogs in training. That for me is probably the most prolific.
So I think we got probably two discussion topics there. Yeah, for sure. Like outing, I know Eric has an entire outing thing, and I do too. So let's I mean, and then the handler aggression deal, I have some individual thoughts on, and then I'll kind of go through some of there's one that I see all the fucking time that I either people don't know it's a problem and they just assume that everybody's dog does it and they don't know any different, or they don't know how to fix it, or they don't think it's worth the time. But let's start with the outing stuff, and we'll do probably the outing and then the handler aggression, and then I'll talk about mine is excessive vocalization, which is going to kind of spin off into some other things. But I think, yeah, let's talk about the outing. So when you see the outing, Tony, I assume we're talking about dual purpose dogs, correct? Like on bite work, apprehension dogs. Yeah, I don't see many singles that have an outing problem. I say that I had a single that was in my last class that had a problem. Like, typically it's always pointy ears. Like the floppy ear dogs, I just take the ball from them. I don't even teach them to out. Just give me the ball. Yeah, I'm like floppy ears. I'll just take it. So kind of diagnose and kind of start talking about how we deal with the outing issue up front on your end, and then we'll kind of go down the line. Eric will do his take, and I'll do mine.
So if I'm limited on time, and I have to problem solve on the fly, typically I like to implement the dual sleeve. Try to see if I can get a dog to swap out one sleeve for the next, and then just sort of layer the out command with a association of new acquisition of a bite. That's kind of where I start, and then if that doesn't work, some dogs just will not relinquish the sleeve. I'm big on the dominant dog collar. I use the dominant dog collar for almost all my obedience. So one thing that I find is that when we apply pressure and the dog, we trip the vagal nerve and the dog trips the gag reflex and yelps. I notice that a lot of handlers and a lot of trainers immediately release the pressure once the dog outs. And I find that, I was talking to Howard about it at DLE last year, and I feel like the dog ends up being in control of the correction. Whereas when I say out, and the dog doesn't out, if I apply pressure, I have a sequence of time that I continue the pressure after the out. And the reason for that is because I don't want the dog to think that he can control the pressure. So if he can, or if he thinks he can control the pressure, he's not going to out until there is pressure. And if I say out and then the dog doesn't out and then I apply pressure, once he outs, I extend the consequence beyond the out for a few seconds. And then I systematically increase the duration of time until the dog totally understands he's not in control of the consequence, and then avoids the consequence altogether. It doesn't always look pretty, but it's effective for me anyway.
So it's something that's like very similar. Like one thing that Eric talks about a lot. I think Eric talks about it in his book, if I remember correctly, the power of twos. I use e-collars for that, and use a very similar method where when we start doing outs, we ride some either tone or vibration avoidance to get the compliance of the behavior, and then the dogs will still ride negative reinforcement into a secondary command. So out initially doesn't necessarily become out, or it finishes out. It means out and down. So they have to do like a secondary command to complete the entire behavior sequence before that negative reinforcement level will stop. The trick on that end, I think, is how much how much juice I'm using, and like what the negative reinforcement level is going to be in terms of how much horsepower they're going to get based on dog. And so it's not like it's like a fixed number, but yeah, it rather than adding, because initially, because you know how vendors and a lot of people teach outs, we reward outs with another bite, and I end up finding that create, and Howard, or not Howard, Eric was just talking about blinds, but the mixing out the predictability so that the dogs are not like fucking anticipating. I want them anticipating another command between another bite command and something else. And I don't care what it is, like down or like heel or whatever we're going to do, but I don't mind rewarding that behavior, but I need that gap. I need the, you know, couple of second gap between the out, the secondary obedience requirement to release the pressure. And then I need some sort of like duration on that behavior before we'll release into something else. So that's a very similar thing. Eric, you're very close to that too, if I remember. Yeah, like, hey, I just want to hop in here real quick and talk about some people that have been with us since the very beginning and helped make this entire show possible. It's the guys from Colorado Springs, Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been around since the 70s and have been producing world-leading canine equipment for the entirety of their existence. You can get literally everything from them except for the dog, the car, and the handler. Everything else they got covered. Inserts, heat alarms, harnesses, leashes, ball poppers, e-collars, everything else that Hermspranger makes. And they have everything available. It's a one-stop shop. If you're a canine handler listening to this, your admins love working with them. They know how to bill, and you can buy everything. So admins just have to write one check. Since we have been partnered with them, they've been gracious enough to grant a discount code. This one's going to work until the end of March of 2026. So you're going to type in WDRRAM, WDR RAM. That'll work till the end of March to get you 10% off anything you want out of there. But yeah, go check them out. Everything you need for working dog, for police dog, for sport dog, and for pet. Hit them up, rayallen.com.
I'll talk about it real quick from the perspective of my e-collar seminar. So when I'm there, you know, one of the things I say we're going to work on is your dog's sticky out, you know, which you guys kind of chuckle. It makes sense to them when I say that sticky out part. But I'm there because my thing's called e-collar without conflict, and 50% of what I teach there is conflict resolution. And so I'm there fixing the dogs or working on helping the dogs that, their no out has been built through conflict, and conflict with the handler, fighting with the handler. It's funny, you get in conflict with the training that they were doing. I'll go to a place and they're like, he's on his third out command. I'm like, guys, what's that definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So you just change his command, but you do the same 1985 training, right? And the 1985 training works on some dogs. They're just fine with it, but that's not what we're seeing. So we have, the funny thing is, man, so I have day one lecture and all the e-collar stuff that I'm doing. We're not even working outs. Day two, we're outing the toy, which you guys have both seen. Tony, I know you've seen it. Guys, this guys can't get their toy from their dog, and some of that goes all the way back to Europe. And we've talked about that a lot, where they build this ball on a rope murder hornet dog that just doesn't want to let go. So anyways, and now we're outing that, but when it comes outing the decoy, I'm not even doing that to the second half of the last day. I'm fixing all the conflict and all the problems that come from the handler's mouth, like the dog ready to fight the handler. And we talked about that. We'll get into the handler aggression stuff, but I'm fixing the outs that way through use of the e-collar, using tone as a negative marker, taking the handler completely out of the mix of conflict. So the conflict on not outing is between the dog and himself. He's getting himself corrected, and all we do is say the out command. And then we add a down, we add a heel, we add a recall, whatever it is we're doing. And there are some dogs, every couple seminars that I got to put the dominant dog collar on them and go back to using negative reinforcement pressure on, their outing, holding it into a certain spot. Then add the tone in there, and because I'm still doing that with the e-collar. But I have taught the beginning outs on a lot of dogs with dominance, just teaching that way. Because I'm the less fighting we can do at this time, with these dogs that we selected because they fight, right? So they're down for it, some of them, right? So we have to fix the root issue, which a lot of times not letting go is not the root issue. It's an effect of it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where, but guys, if you're listening to this, a couple things. It's universal. It's all over the country. Everywhere Tony goes in Canada and the U.S., we see it. Every one of those. The Waileka, we see it. At the DLE seminar, 100 some guys at each of those. All of the seminars I do, all the HRDs that Ted do. A couple guys got real clean outs. You know what I mean? Not a ton, not a lot of guys. They all got some little issues. When I was just in Michigan, there was 13 handlers. 2 or 3 guys had pretty nice, I didn't have to teach them the out. The other guys are sticky, and there's a couple guys that were real sticky. So we just got to show them a different way, maybe take a different approach to it. But yeah, problem solving that way when it comes to out is, I would say for me, is probably the thing I hear the most about.
And I think I agree with you guys when you say that, the secondary behavior being, say, out sit. If I layer the sit with the out, and then the dog has a job or a task after the out, so we can mark that behavior and then reward that behavior. So then the out sit becomes a positive to a re-engagement for the bite. So absolutely. And I use like negative terminal releases and then marks. So I'll mark the behavior, out sit the dog, with pressure if necessary. He'll out sit, and then he sits, and then as soon as he sits, I'll mark that behavior and then give him a terminal release rebite as a reward, and go from there. A lot of dogs don't really know what to do once they out. They're standing there. They have a decoy in front of them. It's the thing that they want the most. They don't know what to do. So the first thing they're going to do is re-engage. So you have this out, and then pressure, then you get this out, then you get this dirty biting, and then you have this conflict, and then the handler gets upset, and then everything spirals out of control from there. Definitely, I layer everything with an out sit. So out sit is my initial command till eventually out becomes out.
Yeah,
sit.
and I tell everybody, I call it the power of twos just as a way to remember it. Correcting the first thing, paying the second thing. If the second thing is a sit or even a recall, that takes that conflict away because they have to let go to do it. So if we're fixing a dog, now if we teach that from a brand new dog, dude, there's not going to be any problem, right?
Yeah.
But now we're trying to fix a problem. So if you're giving your command here on the bite and the dog's vocal, he's getting vocal because of the conflict when it comes to the outing, you will notice if you add a sit or a down, that dog will be quiet. They'll be quiet in that sit and down. When you tell them as they go to do it, they shut up. All that conflict and that noise on the bite goes away because now we're doing math and now we're thinking. I have to let go to get to the sit. The sit's what pays me. Ooh, that was easy. Shit. And then when you find you can say, sit, and the dog lets go and sits, now we're cooking. Right. And if he doesn't, you need more reps. That's all.
And from a certification perspective, right, there are 0 certifications in the country that require you, or in the continent, I guess, that require the dog to out and remain with the decoy. They have the option to do that in some of them. And then you're then instructed to recall the dog. So you get 2 chances to screw something up instead of just 1. But so I'm just saying, right. And that's on the certification side. From the deployment side, I say this, and I haven't had anybody correct me yet, because I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I can't think of an actual deployment where you're going to verbally out the dog and you not be there. So a remote out. And I don't mean like rolling up and grabbing his e-collar and or grabbing the flat collar and telling him to out. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you don't have any physical control or just long line control of the dog. There are 0 times when I'm going to out that dog at that distance and require him to stay there. I need him back. So the implied kind of follow-on command to a remote out is also come back to me. So like all of our dogs, when they out, like on a building search or whatever, they're out away from us at the end of a long line or off leash, and we use vibrate. Vibrate literally means come back to me. And like Eric said, you got to spit out whatever's in your mouth to get back to me. So, it covers both. Now there is there's still some certifications that require the pat down, which is fine. But it all requires the dog to come back to the handler and then down. It requires durability of that behavior, and then you do the pat down. So that's a whole other thing. But the dog's still got to get back to you. So decoy freezes up, dog name out, and then it's an automatic recall, plots, or whatever your down command is. You go over and do your pat down, and then Eric, does Opata still do portion, or is it?
No,
just,
they haven't ever done that. They do.
Okay.
They did so you had to do the out to you, and then you go do the pat down, then you go back to the dog, and then you go back up, pat down, and the handler gets shoved off by the decoy. Starting in July, that's over. We're done with that stupid one. You have to go move the decoy a couple. You just move them one way and move them the other way, and that's really it. In that regards, if you listen to this, you're like, well, how do I get there? And you teach that out, sit, here, out, sit here, out here, and then if you do enough reps, here, the dog lets go on one command and will come all the way back. I find, though, the key to that when you're doing the here is the decoy has to walk up to the dog next to the handler and reward him right there. Reward the dog where you want him to be. That makes it fast. There's dogs you don't need to do that with. They're pretty good about it. But if you're going here and the dog comes and then you reward him with another bite, you're going to get a touch and go dog, or the dog that comes in heel. And when you say here and he comes in front of you, I'm sure you've all seen that.
Yeah, he splits the difference because he's anticipating being rewarded. There's another
by sending.
Yeah. So yeah. So
now up in Canada,
the whole power of two thing too, which is
what's pretty typical.
Go ahead.
Do you guys ever use do you guys ever use the like a position box for your out and recall? So I end up using a position box where the dog has to actually sit in the box, and then I create a duration. So I mark it, and then I create a duration time, and then I redeploy. So if I'm doing an out and recall, I'll start with the out sit on the bite table, but then eventually I'll do the out and recall to a position box. And I have obedience exercises that I do with young dogs. I'll throw food out of the box. They'll go out, pick up the food, and then come back into the heel position box. And it helps make the out and recall real clean, because they know that once they get back in that box, I can mark it and then create a duration and then redeploy as a reward, or reward at location where I'm at. So I like to use the position boxes because it really cleans up the finish. I don't have a dog parked.
That's actually a pretty good idea. I have not done that. I have a position box, and I don't even use it on every dog. I'll use it on some dogs, and I'm just using it for the position next to the handler and going from the sit down, doing the doggy push-ups, so that they don't move and bounce and everything like that. But I haven't done that with the recall. That actually makes a lot of sense. Mine, though, I made it myself, is about 200 pounds. I made it with what wood I had laying around. That thing is so freaking heavy, man. I can't stand it. I got to make a new one.
That I find that works really well for dogs that have a foundation or have the ability to work for multiple rewards. Right, because we're rewarding intensity, we're rewarding, we're marking intensity, we're marking all the behaviors, we're marking all these things. And I find that dogs that have a problem with competing motivators won't accept that. Like, they're not going to take food in the presence of a higher value reward, which is a whole other part of this that we've kind of taken the 30,000 foot view on. But if you have a dog that has a foundation of an understanding of how to take food, it makes it very, very, very easy. The last couple of seminars I've been to, especially when we were in Canada, all of the RCMP guys all carry around dump pouches full of food. And, these dogs will be 6 years old and they're still feeding them during training. I'm like, right? And those dogs will do it. Like, they will 100%, take food as a reinforcer in the presence of something else. But, we see it quite often in the whole, like, if you do too much of the toy trade, then we start, our grip quality starts suffering and dogs start anticipating being outed. And then we have a whole problem of like trading one for the other and anticipating one being the other. And it's the whole other, like, causes a whole other set of issues. But, I don't know, for the better part of 5 or 6 years now, Eric has been advocating like everybody should be training with food. And if you do, it doesn't mean you're gay. So, and this is a primary reason why. The other thing nice with food is I get millions of reps. It's how we teach recalls. It's how I teach. It's how I teach obedience. It's how we teach articles. It's how we teach tracking. It's how we do everything. I try. Odor is still pretty much prey driven, but everything else I use, and obviously apprehension work is prey driven. But yeah, you're not going to convince a fucking Malinois to out off of a decoy for food. They're just not going to do it. There's no way to reward it. But yeah, and that's not what we're talking about here. But if it's nice. So, for example, what that looks like on the sim I finished in, is you have a dog, he goes and does a bite work thing, like send out recall, and then ask him to start healing, like do his nice competition or his certification healing pattern, and intermittently being rewarded with food right as the decoy is still standing there. Or in your long down in the presence of a decoy, like in some of the states or national and state certifications, where the dog will accept food being thrown at his feet as a bridge reward for maintaining that position in the presence of a decoy, then you should be able to. If you're not that way, you need to be doing more food reward and primary food reward for sure.
Hey everybody, this episode and every episode is brought to you by our good friends, the Perkinsons down at Highland Canine. If you've been with us for a while, listened to every show, you've heard us talk about Highland, how they offer handler schools. You can buy green dogs, you can buy pre-trained dogs. They have a dog trainer school for dog trainers. It's amazing. But what they're really getting out in front of is the online courses. So if you're having trouble getting your agency to send you places to train, you have two options. You can get on Highland Canine, canine spelled out, highlandcanine.com, and look up some of their online courses. And guess what? They've given us a discount code for the online courses, HK930 for 30% off. HK930, 30% off their online courses. But also, if you don't want to do it online, you can host them. You can host them at your place. It's crazy. They'll come to you. You don't even have to go anywhere. You can just roll out of bed, go to work, and everybody else can come in and train at your place. Just reach out to them at Police Canine, K9, at HighlandCanine.com, HighlandCanine.com, or call 704-500-6810. So let's go into the handler aggression stuff. So you're at, say, Walaka, and you got 3 days, and you got a guy's been bit 5 or 6 times or routinely, and that's a terrible life, guys. And if you're listening to this and you're routinely getting bit by your dog, and your department's not going to help you, and they're not going to make you get you another dog, and you got to live with this dog, and you've been hospitalized a couple of times, and you're always kind of jumping and on edge, you're going to come to us, and you're going to go to Tony's station and tell him, listen, this is the problem, I'm getting torn up. Where do you get them? How do you start their path?
Well, the first thing, like a lot of that handler aggression stems from possessiveness with the reward. So when I bring we had it this year at DLE, and hats off to the handler. I mean, he was he was hanging in there. He was frustrated. He was stressed, but you know, we got it done. Basically, I used a dominant dog collar. In this case, it was almost immediate, where the dog would just immediately engage the handler. So I double rigged them, 2 leashes, 2 collars. I had another dog that would just bite the lead, immediately bite the lead. So when he bites the lead, I use the other lead with the other collar. He switches to the other lead, and I just make it so that it's useless for him to try to bite the lead. But in the case of dominant aggression, if I can get a muzzle, great. I don't think enough emphasis is put on a lot of these dogs to wear muzzles. When I start dogs, I start them real young. So I don't import any dogs from Europe. All of our dogs are raised here, whether they're purchased as puppies or whether they're bred here. We're running an 18 to 22 month training course for the dog before the officers ever arrive. So we do a lot of obstacle work. And I utilize obstacles that are not agility obstacles. They're literally physical obstacles that the dogs don't want to do, refuse to do. We start real simple and work our way up. But I think that, you know, when I was in the Netherlands and dogs were getting lit up and beat down quite literally physically, and then the opposite occurred here in North America, where you have all these positive motivational trainers where they think that the justification or the solution to all this abusive training is hands off. I think that that creates a big problem when dogs are lured and they're never manipulated, especially during the development phases. They don't ever learn to trust anybody touching them. So a lot of handler aggression, as soon as you start applying stimulus like a prong collar to a dog that just is stimulated by the pain, now it comes up the line. I use the dominant dog collar to suppress drive instead of stimulate it. I consider the restriction of blood flow, oxygen, and gag reflex as a suppressant. And we do a lot of physical manipulation, just something simple as a sit. Right hand on the lead, left hand on the hip, sit the dog, down the dog physically, put pressure on the lead. I use lead pressure, and I want to make sure that the dog is comfortable being physically touched. One hand on the lead, one hand on his shoulder. Just keep touching him, especially in the abdomen, towards the back hips area. I want to make sure that that dog is completely comfortable being touched by his handler. Something as simple as a 6x6 post between 2 tree stumps, just walking that dog along with one hand on the lead, one hand underneath his abdomen, letting him understand that physical touch will lead to security, will lead to a reward, will lead to a better relationship with the handler. Um, that's where I think that a lot of these dogs don't. They get lured into position, they provide the position, and their only consideration is the behavior, which is the position. And for me, that's a big gap in the relationship bonding structure with the dog. I think that a dog must trust his handler. I've seen it at Willeka one year where the dogs had to be shouldered to go up a ladder to search an attic. You know, quite a few officers got bit in the face by their own dogs because they couldn't shoulder the dog. These dogs don't trust their handlers because everything revolves around the behaviors of searching and biting and basic behaviors like sit down and heel. Whereas I think there's more to it than that. And the relationship building process is something that's really, really overlooked. So when I'm working the dog, if I can get a muzzle on him, right hand on the lead, left hand on the hip, tuck him in, he starts to climb the lead, just a little bit of lead pressure. My left hand goes on the back of his head, a little bit of lead pressure on that gag reflex. He starts to settle down, back to physical manipulation, manipulating him into the front position, manipulating him into the heel position, downing him, standing him, lifting him. All of those things are desensitizations to physical touch that don't always end up with something bad happening. And the dogs need to understand that through physical touch they get rewarded. And that's very important. That I think that most handlers are trying to fix handler aggression without ever touching the dog, because the dog's assuming that physical touch is a trigger to handler aggression. So they're competing instead of working together. So that's one thing that I do. If you ever get a chance, I'll send you some photos of my obstacle course. It's pretty crazy. Suspension bridges, 4x4 posts standing on end, moving the dog's feet on each obstacle, 18-inch tunnels that are really, really confined and long, really difficult stuff for the dog to do, but requiring assistance from the handler so that these dogs trust their handlers. And I think that, working a 10, 12-hour shift with your dog sitting in the squad does not develop a relationship.
You're both 100% correct on that. The only thing I'm going to add is, when we start talking about handler aggression, I think it kind of falls into two branches off the same tree. One is a genetic predisposition. There are some of those dogs that are just rank assholes, and we all know people like this too that'll fight. I mean, you could tell them the sky is blue, and they would go make sure and fight you about it. And if you're like, no, it's not. And there are dogs that are like that, and I've trained dogs like that. I've handled dogs like that. I've owned dogs like that. It sucks, and it's not impossible, but it definitely, like, typically those dogs are also kind of like one-track mind. They're usually really easy to predict, and it's really easy to kind of see when those are kind of coming down the pipe. The other fork, I think, and this is where I think most quote-unquote handler aggression comes from, is it's a created behavior. 100% it's created. And, it can be through possession of toy, right? Like fighting me for possession of something. Or where I usually find it, and I think Eric is kind of in this same vein, is it's mistimed corrections or mistimed rewards. And also in terms of reward and or punishment intensity. I think early on, like Tony, you mentioned like grabbing the leash. That is, aside from the fact that is one of the most annoying fucking behaviors, working behaviors, when a dog turns and grabs the leash. God, and typically that'll turn into a bite because they start getting closer and closer and closer and closer to your hand, and then you're trying to get your hand out of the way, and then it turns into this thing, and then it's a whole deal, right? Like, we start inadvertently marking behaviors, and it turns into something else, which turns into corrections, which turns into a fight, which turns into all these other things. And then I think the other side is dudes that mistime, and both mistime intensity and mistime correction styles, I guess is the best way to say it. But, they overcorrect for some behaviors, and then the line between positive punishment and negative reinforcement gets very, very blurry to the dog, and they can't tell which is which causes conflict and causes some lack of clarity. We get kind of opaque in what we're being asked to do, which then the dog feels like they don't really understand what's being asked, and they know that a correction is imminent, and the best way out of it is to pop the handler back before you get corrected. And I see that a lot. A lot of times I'll get dogs that get sent to me from other departments or from vendors, and they're like, yeah, this dog came back because he's handler aggressive. And I get him in. I was like, he ain't handler aggressive. You just can't fuck with him. And you have to be very, very crystal clear on why you're correcting him and how you do it. And the timing and the intensity has to be perfect, which is why, to clean it up anyway, which is why we use e-collars, because no matter how bad or how mad I get, and I can push my thumb through the remote, and if I have it set at 30, like, it's still going to be a 30. And the other side of the timing is that a lot of times when dudes try and fix an out, and I think Eric talks about this at his seminars, with an e-collar, like when they slap the e-collar on the dog and they fucking blast him, right? They're like, oh man, that worked great. Like, I'm a fucking ninja dog trainer. I have 2 reps. I already taught him to out. And it works at first because the dog is like, what the hell is that? Like, why is that working? Then the timing starts coming. Yep. And then the timing starts to come in, and all of a sudden we start getting drift on the amount of time the dog is getting stemmed. And then it starts turning into negative reinforcement. So for those listening, if this sounds familiar, this is what I'm talking about. You slap the e-collar on the dog, he's on a back tie, either on a table or whatever, deliver a grip, dog bites, dog name out, deliver stem, dog comes off. What the fuck is that? Now you do 5-6 reps, another session comes through, all of a sudden the dog kind of hedges his bets and bleeds a little further on, and then the pressure stops on the collar, and he's still committed on a grip. Now we've just committed reinforcement scheduling on denial of a command and reinforced a behavior that was already genetically predisposed to be there. So now the dog is like really committed to not outing, really committed to biting, and really not committed to listening to what's going on because we're intermittently reinforcing that biting behavior. So honestly, the number one tool to fix that if you're using an e-collar for me are those squawk boxes, the thing that makes noise so everybody can hear what's going on, because as long as we get the timing consistent, the dogs are usually pretty on the ball about getting out of the way of a correction. And if I can kind of get through some clarity, then get some clarity in there, you can usually get some pretty quick results and get them down the fork in the road that is down to some reliability on outs. But I tend to find that handler aggression more often than not is. I got a dog right now that came from another training group and tagged his handler in handler school a couple of times. Never tagged me, never tagged my trainers, and I know exactly what caused it. And I could tell that the dog wasn't ready to work, or it was not done working, and it was time for him to get put back up in a car or in a kennel or whatever. And they said foos, and I mean popped the shit out of him, and the dog was anticipating being corrected. And when I was just kind of like, just let him hang out and give him a ball in his mouth, we'll go put him up. But we let him down and chill out, and then we're just like, let's go, buddy, and let him make the decision to pull us towards the door. No problem. But he felt like he was being corrected for complying with a command, which caused an issue in his mind about why he was being corrected, and he turned and would blast you. So, and all it took was one ill-timed correction.
You guys ever find a lot of the handlers struggle with, they finally get the dog out, maybe drop the tug or the ball on the ground, and then as they reach for the ball or the tug, the dog lunges, and then they rip the ball out of the dog, like try to make sure that the dog doesn't bite it. And they say out, and then the dog outs, and then they reach for it, and the dog does a little bit of a jerk to go at it, and then they rip the ball out, trying to get it away from and I'm like, let him bite it, and then punish him for it. If you keep pulling it away, when he sees you reach for it, he's going to bite it every time, because you're creating this association that it's going to run. So it's this Pavlovian association that, the ball is going to run as soon as you touch it. So it's almost like this. You touch it and it becomes alive and it runs. So of course he's going to bite it. And I'm like, I'd much rather have the dog, every time I reach for the ball, if he bites it, I hold him accountable. Yeah. I told you to out, stay. Therefore, if I reach for it, I should be able to pick it up, put it in your face, and then put it in my pocket. But then you end up with handlers that they snatch the ball away on the out, and then they put the ball or the tug in their pocket, and then they got the dog chewing on their pocket, trying to rip it out of their pocket, or biting them because they think it's in their pocket. Yeah. And that's another big problem where, you get a lot of handler aggression, because it's not really handler aggression. It's they've created this dog that thinks that the tug is going to come to life and it's going to go into your pocket.
Hey, I just want to hop in here real quick and talk about some people that have been with us since the very beginning. I helped make this entire show possible. It's the guys from Colorado Springs, Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been around since the 70s and have been producing world-leading canine equipment for the entirety of their existence. You can get literally everything from them except for the dog, the car, and the handler. Everything else they got covered. Inserts, heat alarms, harnesses, leashes, ball poppers, e-collars, everything else that Hermspranger makes. And they have everything available. It's a one-stop shop. If you're a canine handler listening to this, your admins love working with them. They know how to bill, and you can buy everything. So admins just have to write one check. Since we have been partnered with them, they've been gracious enough to grant a discount code. This one's going to work until the end of March of 2026. So you're going to type in WDRRAM, WDR RAM. That'll work till the end of March to get you 10% off anything you want out of there. But yeah, go check them out. Everything you need for working dog, for police dog, for sport dog, and for pet. Hit them up, rayallen.com. Yeah, and that's an artifact of like imprinting and foundational work. And I tell guys on day 2 of our handler schools, you will never be faster than this dog. You just won't. Like, I don't care what kind of dog it is and what kind of handler it is. As a human, you will never be faster than that dog, which is how dudes get their hands bit in that exact scenario. And they're like, oh, he bit me for the toy. I'm like, no, you stuck your fucking hand in his mouth. And I just tell dudes, I'm like, if he, like, and same thing when you're playing tug with him, if for some reason you miss time, like a regrip, and the toy or the ball or the tug where it slips out of his mouth, drop it, because you're not going to be able to keep it away from him. And then, I show him videos of people playing, ball with these dogs, and we do these misses where they come by and the toy moves, the toy moves, the toy moves. I'm like, this is what he thinks you're doing, so stop. And I just put the point, like, same thing. We maintain a position, we require it, and then we have a pretty choreographed piece of that puzzle, though, where as soon as the toy gets up, the dog goes right back to work or looks for work to regain toy, which is not biting the fucking handler or not biting the decoy or not biting the leash. Like, go back to work. If you want to go right back to source where you just found it, like, that's fine with me. I don't care. Go right back to work. But yeah, so that is something that, now for the first group of dogs that are real handler aggressive, you got to be like weaponized autism handler, and you have to be a robot almost to handle that type of dog. As long as you do everything the exact same every single time, you'll be fine. Like, they won't fuck with you at all, which is probably why I don't ever get bit that often. But yeah, so this last thing that I kind of want to talk about, I guess, has like two prongs. It's excessive vocalization during, I guess we can call it prey leaking, whatever, drive leaking, however you want to fucking, whatever we want to call it. I see it manifest in detection. I see it manifest in all forms of work, and all forms of utility, whether it's apprehension work, tracking, bite work, detection work. It's prevalent across single-purpose dogs, dual-purpose dogs. It's prevalent across breeds. I see labs that can get get fucking twisted about like constantly vocalizing like everything, right? And I'm not talking about in the truck. I'm talking about when we're working, like when we're maintaining a down position, whatever it is. Where it manifests itself most for me at HRDs is building searches during announcements. Everybody listening to this has, police the dog, make yourself known, the dog will find you, he will bite you, right? And then the dog lights up, right? There are some dogs that are so deep in that even standing there having a conversation at the door, so just 5 handlers and an instructor standing there having a conversation about what's going on that contextually looks like a building search, the dogs lose their fucking shit. And they're just barking. And I personally think that comes from like millions of reps where we teach that behavior and we reward that behavior. I also think it's a foundational problem of how building searches are taught. And then I think it's an issue with how, as an industry, we train handlers in handler school. For better or worse, in handler schools, especially new handlers, need reps. They need a shit ton of reps on the basic fundamentals of leash handling and building searches and detection runs. And that's why we do 40 fucking tracks in an 160-hour handler school, and we'll do, several hundred detection finds and how, tons and tons of these things, because handlers need reps. The downside of that is the dogs now have this entire reward history of every single fucking time there's a bite. And then I flat out ask dudes, I'm like, during your maintenance training, how many times do you do a blind building search with blind with no decoy, where we're just hunting? Like, that's all I want the dog to do. And they're almost universally, the answer is never. And I'm like, okay, how many times do you do a building search on a deployment that's a productive, meaning you find someone, and 2, you actually bite them? Like, those numbers are in the less than 1% of the time that you're deploying, even if you're in a busy, jurisdiction where you're deploying, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 times a week on a building search, whether it's leashed, off leash, whatever it is. But, most of the time those searches are unproductive. So the dogs get classically conditioned. I mean, easily conditioned to every time we've mentioned an announcement, they're like, okay, well, I got to find a bite. I'm going to bite something because I do it 1,000 times. I've talked out here at length about how we not convert. I'll do that in a second, but how I imprint dogs with building searches now to be quiet from the onset. And it works really, really, really well. Todd Mona from Connecticut has a whole thing that he does. It's very similar to that too. It works fantastically well to keep dogs quiet. But as far as the drive leaking goes and the anticipation side, how are you guys dealing with that?
Eric, you want to go with that? Okay, so I look at it 2 ways. So during the development of the obedience in my course, and obviously this is not problem solving. This is the development phase. I basically desensitize the dogs to the announcements. I make the announcements randomly during different disciplines. The announcements are irrelevant to the dog. So the precursor to biting is show me your hands. Typically that's how I instigate the bite work with the bite command, take them or stellen, whatever the bite command is going to be. But I have in the development of obedience, I have basically I create a dictionary definition of each behavior. So anything included by the dog above and beyond what that definition is held accountable for. So if I say down and my dog is sniffing, then he's not downing correctly. No down, correction, or no stay, correction. If that dog is sitting and he's whining, he's not sitting correctly. So in the development of the behaviors, I don't allow anything other than those behaviors to occur. Another thing that I typically do is, like, if I'm doing narcotic searches, I'll on occasion let the dog carry the tug or the ball into the room or up to the vehicle that we're about to search. And then the ball is dead to them unless I activate it. So they'll spit out the ball and go to work. And then I'll reward them back to the ball on a good search or an indication. And then they can have it as they move on to the next vehicle or to the next room. I think that a lot of times the context, the classical conditioning context of the announcements precluding the deployment is the problem. We need to separate that. So I have a separate word for, so if I'm tracking and I get to the end of a track and I don't normally do a bite at the end of a track, but if I needed to, then I would use the show me your hands as a trigger. I wouldn't make announcements. I would be show me your hands as the trigger to the bite. But if I say sheriff's office with a canine, come out with your hands up now, I'll send the dog, or you'll be bet. And I say that 3 times. I'll say that during obedience. I'll say that during dope work. I'll say that during evidence art. I'll say it in the vehicle with the dog. None of that should matter to them. That should be completely, a different language to them. It shouldn't mean that a building search is occurring. And then during training, even if we're doing a building search, I don't always make announcements in training because I don't want that classical conditioning association made with the precursor to the bite or to the search for a potential bite, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just walk up during training, just walk up on hook, find him, send him in. I've had it where I've done walk up, find him, and as he starts going, and I know the guy's going to be deep in the building, I'll just start yelling the commands. They never bark, never, because they're moving. That's
Yeah.
it's not the best way. And so really what I started messing with more is quiet pays, teaching the dog that being quiet is what gets you to go do what you want. I started using a little bit more, and I can't remember who we were talking with that talked about it, and maybe I just saw it online, is one of the 4 quadrants, one of the ones that we don't use enough is negative punishment. I'll just remove them. Fuck up. You blew it. Especially if I know the dog knows the context of what we're doing, and he starts barking, just fuck it, you blew it. What I used to do is, like, I could dominant dog collar. I would just get that dog to shut up, get quiet, and then send him, right? Teach him quiet pays that way. What I worry about there is some dogs will learn to bark, bark, get quiet, and then go. Now we've taught them to do that. Bark, 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 get quiet to avoid the dominant or whatever it is, and then go. But they still bark, right? So then that becomes a condition.
Yeah.
I bark 3 times, get quiet, dude sends me, right?
So it's kind of like desensitizing a dog to gunfire. If you want a dog neutral to gunfire, you just make gunfire not a payable behavior when they act up. So as far as that's concerned, as long as your announcements are not a precursor or associated precursor, I find I don't have that problem.
I like that.
And I just hold them accountable for the behavior.
But Ted and you are very similar because Ted uses show me your hands or as a bite command, or precursor to bite command.
Yeah. And So I've talked multiple times on the show about how we start the building search process to keep them quiet. But if you're in the position where you've got a dog that's excessive, I say this all the time, and handlers kind of look at me funny, and then they think about it for a second. They're like, "Oh, you're kind of right." I'm like, when we're any phase that we're working, tracking, detection, whatever, pick a phase. When is barking desired? And they kind of think about it. I was like, the only time is when we have a barricaded or a hidden suspect that the dog cannot access, and we can't see the dog. So he barks to let us know, right? I'm not talking about search and rescue FEMA where they bark and then do the lassie thing and come back and get you and take you back. I'm not talking about that. So that's the only time I really want them to bark. Like other than that, I don't need them to bark ever. I don't need them to bark in the car. I don't need them to bark. I mean, I guess they can bark like if somebody comes up to the car and you're sitting in the car working on paperwork, so you don't get, somebody's not coming up to fucking kill you or whatever. I don't mind. I guess the kind of dogs do that as long as they'll shut up. So early on, the barking becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because dudes get frustrated and they're like, dude, fine, whatever, just go. So you'll shut the fuck up. And so it becomes like the precursor, and they start building and drive and start loading and loading and loading and loading and loading. And it's really, really difficult to hit that circuit breaker once you've got years of conditioned barking behavior. The other side of this too is that if you have a sport dog or it has a sport foundation, especially in IGP, whatever, like whatever they're calling it now, the Schutzen, they're taught to bark, like bark in the blind. They're taught to do all those things. That can be a really difficult behavior to extinguish too. So the thing that I kind of like to remind guys is to overcome this, we have to be 100% consistent 100% of the time for a long time, which is really difficult to do. So early on, outside of a working context, so if you have a dog that's like free roaming in the backyard, or a dog that's in his 10 by 10 outside, like where a lot of police dogs live, or if you're in the patrol car, somewhere that you as a handler do not have physical control of him, he, is doing his dog thing, whatever he's doing, either in the kennel or in the backyard, for a potty time or free time or whatever, or back of the patrol car or whatever. Put a DOGTRA or whatever, just a bark collar on them. And the thing about the bark collars is they are 100% consistent 100% of the time, as long as it's turned on and it's charged. And we start out that way, and they learn, they're like, okay, this kind of works like this, they start figuring out really quick, and handlers will say like, oh, yo, he's quiet now. Like it took me 5 minutes. He's quiet now. At that point, we'll put the bark collar on him during a building search. Same rules apply, right? Don't tell him to shut up. Don't say anything. Just do it like you normally do. Police for the dog. If he starts barking, let the collar do its thing. So you're not fucking around with the e-collar remote, or whatever else. Dog starts to be quiet. This is where your decoy becomes super important. And this isn't even a building search. This is just literally, you can stack up outside of a large room and just put the dog at the threshold, police the dog, right? As soon as he's quiet, and you hear, like the decoy can hear the totality of your response all the way till he will find you and bite you, they will give you a non-human noise in the room. They'll knock on a desk or a wall or something. Once you see recognition by the dog that, hey, I heard that, give him the command, find him. He goes, he turns the corner, dude's literally right there, smoke. You can work another skill out, right? And then you can do the Todd Mona thing where he wins the room. Decoy then leaves the room, down the dog, repeat the process. Decoy moves to the next room. So if you have a hallway that has 6 rooms in a row, you can do 6 bites in 2 minutes. And I guarantee you by the last half of those, if not definitely the last third, he'll shut the fuck up. He won't bark at all. And it's 100% consistent 100% of the time. You do that for several months in training, and then you can start layering on a quiet command, and you can start correcting it by yourself with an e-collar. Then you've got it, right? So, but the key here is that we've got to convince them that their ears are just as valuable as their eyes and their nose. And if they can start by learning, look, I'm barking, I can't hear the decoy in the room. I can't hear them deep in the building. Then you can start fading it out, right? And how that looks is you start integrating blinds or, blind searches. So we send the dog into a first room, which is non-productive, right? Dog comes out. He's like, bro, there's nothing in there. And he's quiet, right? We're not going to pay him for anything. So now we're having drive loading because we now have missed it. Dog now has inspected being rewarded. His drive have come up. We move to the next room. start making the announcement, all of a sudden the dog might start getting loaded again, and he might pop a little bit, but if he's quiet, decoy then confirms on that room, dog goes in, bites, and then you start building duration of behavior over time and intermittently rewarding. And we're not using any positive reinforcement here. This is straight up, like Eric just said, negative punishment and or positive punishment. And we're either taking something away or we're adding a negative stimulus, but it's 100% consistent 100% of the time. And it makes things that are opaque crystal clear. And I've been able to fix dogs that were excessively vocal in, I don't know, a couple of days, to where we had a reliable dog that didn't even make noise anymore. Like he was like dead fucking silent. You know, and it doesn't take long. You can overcome that very quickly. But the key component is you got to get them to the point where they at least understand how the bark collar works. And then your decoy's got to be Johnny on the spot with marking two things: the end of your announcement and then marking the quietness. So if I make an announcement and the dog barks, and we've lost the training value. So your decoy's got to be like on the ball for sure.
I do want to point something out that it's about barking, but it's unrelated to what we were talking about here. So, I'm a big proponent of the DOGTRA YS600 bark collar, right? I think it's the best on the market. When DOGTRA talked to us about how do we how do we improve it? How do we get a different collar so we can add some features to it? We talked to them about getting a collar that corrects whining, because the dogs will learn to whine under the threshold of the bark, right? And this isn't like building search stuff. This is like crate, kennel, at your house, back in a car, that type of stuff. They whine. So they come out with the smart no bark collar, right? Awesome collar. Has an app on it. On the app, you can set the sensitivity to picking up whining, the vibration of the barking. You can set the bark correction. There's a button where you can actually administer some stim, maybe to hold stim to get them to lay down instead of standing up in the crate. So I found this, I figured this out. I had a Doberman here, and Dobermans, like a lot of shepherds, whine. A lot of them whine, and it's such a thing ingrained in them that they can't help it, right? They literally cannot stop whining. This particular dog, and he would whine and get himself spun up and bark, and then bark, bark, bark. So I got that collar on him because I was going to use it for. I set all the settings on there to crush that whining and correct barking. And you can set how the sensitivity of the correction. You can make it a rising correction. You can make it make sure it vibrates before the correction. There's all kinds of settings, dude. I figured out because the dog could not control the whining, and I'll give you a human analogy to it here in a minute. How he could not control the whining, that function on that collar would send him into fucking orbit where he couldn't stop whining, bam, bark, bark, bam, bark, bam, bark. He would just get out of control. I was like, motherfucker, man. It made it worse. It made it worse. So I went in and changed the settings, and I turned off the whining, because it says whining and howling. I turned off the whining, and I put the bark just for the barking. And I had to put up with some whining, but it stopped. Like, dude, he would be, so the app shows a correction count, and it goes up to 99. And he would be at 99 in about 3 minutes. That's how many times he was getting corrected. 5 minutes. So Jesus. I changed it to barking only. And then he was allowed to whine, and I had to put up with some of the whining, but he would whine and spin up and get corrected for actually just barking and not whining. And it stopped all the barking. Like, he was getting 1 correction, 5 corrections in an hour, none. Still whining, a little bit you had to deal with, but the whining got lower and lower. And it's one of those things, man, like I can't fix that part. And some shepherds, you guys know, you have shepherds are going to be kind of the same way. And it may be leaking. It may be just something they can absolutely not control. And I guarantee their parents did the same thing. So the way I equate it to, and I started thinking about it, was when I was so I have Tourette's. And the only thing right now that manifests itself in my Tourette's is like facial tics. And my shoulder, I'll roll my shoulder. And if you've been around me at all, you've seen it. It's pretty obvious. When I was a kid, though, I would shake my head like this. just like that. I could not stop it, could not control it. My mom, it would piss her off so bad because there was no such thing as Tourette's then. They didn't call it that. It was just a tick, right? And my mom she would grab my head and just pissed that I couldn't stop doing it. And I would tell her I couldn't control it. And it fucked me up, made me worse. I would do it more, and it made me hate when she was fucking bitching at me about it. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, son of a bitch. And then there's another trainer I know just had a dog doing the same thing. That it's possible on the whining side, you could have a dog doing that and doing all the correction for just leaking. You may not be able to do anything about that. You sure it's fucking correct prey barking and barking that's been created by things that we were talking about, associations. But if you're doing that thing with that collar at home and it makes the dog worse, something to kind of think about. I just figured that out. And he just couldn't control it. And then he's like, fuck, he just would go out of control because I can't help it. And I'm getting myself in trouble because I'm not there. He's getting himself in trouble for something he can't control. Same thing with me. If I was, getting stimmed every time I shook my head when I was a kid, you talk about the stress that would fucking do to me because I can't stop it. I had to grow out of it. So one thing I'm going to switch gears here so we can, we've been on this for a little while, is you're like a kind of an innovator, always thinking, trying to come up with some stuff. I know you got some things in the pipeline, some stuff you're working on. I don't know where you're at on some of the things, if you sell them, if you have it on your website. Talk about some things that you have that people can go and actually look at right now.
In the very near future, we're going to have all of this stuff on the website. Basically, we're working on three things. So the first thing is we developed a blunt force trauma vest in conjunction with the D3O body armor. Are you familiar with D3O at all? They use it in motorcycle racing, football helmets. The military use it in their helmets. So it's a high density foam, very lightweight, highly malleable, but it gets hard on impact and it absorbs kinetic energy. So we developed a really, really cool vest, base layer vest, 11 contact points of adjustment. It's one size fits all. It's incredible. D-rings are all nylon in line with the spine. It floats. It is all mesh. It breathes really, really well. The breastplate has 30 layers of Kevlar built into it in case they get pierced or stabbed with a branch or a knife. And then there's a 30-layer Kevlar Handgun 2 certified cover jacket that goes over top. And it has these really cool magnetic buckles that grab on. They have a 250-pound load rating. So they're metal, but they attract to one another magnetically. So all you got to do is get them close to the base of the vest, and it just like a transformer, just click, 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 and it 5-6 seconds, and it's gone from ballistic or non-ballistic to ballistic. So apparently the number one cause of death in police dogs is vehicle wrecks en route to calls, more so than stabbings and gunshots. So we built a base layer vest that's like a motorcycle racing jacket for dogs. It's got shoulder blade protectors, sternum protectors, rib cage protectors, and spinal system protector. So it's kind of like the SWAT guys go in with their gear and their elbow pads, shoulder pads, helmet, and the dog goes in with nothing. So in this case, we have a ballistic cover as well as kinetic energy absorption. So that's one part.
Video you made of it? That thing is slick as shit.
Thank you.
That vest is really cool.
Thank you. It's it was a long time.
You can hear that. You can hear the magnets too.
Yeah. As soon as you get it close, they just grab on. They're actually fidlock buckles. They're really, really quick. The other thing I'm working, we just finished is a some people call it a dopamine box. I call it an imprinting box. Most imprinting boxes, they have a hole on the top, and you'd lift the lid, put your dope inside or your target odor. you put the lid on it, and that's it. You either put a ball popper in it, or you're rewarding on top. So what we did was we have an opening on the front, and you basically can pop a ball up through the front or through the top. You can put food through the top with young dogs, but the hole itself is adjustable. I have screw-in adjusters. So if you got a little spaniel that's going to get her head stuck in it, and you don't want your dog to get their head stuck in the hole, I have different size adjusters for the size of the hole. And then once you got the dog trained where you're getting a final response that you like over the hole, the entire hole spins out, and then a new plate screws in, and it's a seam. So before you ever get to a vehicle or furniture, the dog's already hitting on seams on your scent boxes, which is super cool. And it's all high density polyethylene, and it's really cool. And then the last thing we've been working on is a magnetic box, and the magnetic box is a tongue and groove, so they actually connect linearly. So you can run them along the bottom of vehicle doors, and they're all seams. It doesn't have writing on it. It just seams. So it basically mimics the seams of the doors, and it looks like a molding, and they're all individual boxes. They have two magnets. The magnets are inside the plastic, so they can't scratch the vehicles, but it's super cool because it creates this muscle memory where the dogs are running linear seams, and they're not taking their nose off the seams throughout the fluctuation of breathing cycles. So it's really cool. And you get your hot box, whatever one has the target odor in it, and the dogs are just running straight seams and then hitting on target odor. And it creates a muscle memory, so you don't have to detail. The dogs already know to work seams right from the development phase. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a 4-in-1 type situation with that box. Like, mine, like Ted was saying, I use wooden boxes. I got like one use for those. Like, I'm going to imprint them, I can't change the configuration on them. I can put them up against the wall so that the hole is not there, but the hole's there. Right. So I can't really change it, but I like that how it's all in there.
Imagine you took your wooden box and you built a new one without a hole in it, but you took the skill saw blade and cut a slit in it. Well, now that's your seam. Now your dog's hitting on a seam before he ever moves past the box. The problem is you got to get dope in it, or target odor in it, right?
Yeah, I like it. You said, I think you showed it to me in person, and then Ted, you sent him a video the other day. It was really cool, man. Like, just, that's a lot, especially for the different dog sizes. You get that big head shepherd, and the next thing you're doing a little pointer or something. And the pointer can stick his whole freaking head in there.
I've seen guys where the dog's got the whole lid, he's got his head stuck and he can't get it out, and he'll never put his head in the hole again. Yeah,
we laugh and whatever, but it's kind of fucked up. Like some of those dogs, that could be irreparable psychological damage to them.
Yep.
Going around with their head stuck. Well, that's cool. Where are you driving off to next?
I'm going to North Dakota, actually. Going to be there with DLE. I brought DLE up to North Dakota for their certification. It's their first one, so they're just getting started. And then I don't know. I'm hoping maybe I'll get DLE invite me to Texas. I'd like to go down. I've never been to Texas.
Yeah, I've never been to North Dakota, so look at you. That DLE, for you guys, if you're looking it up, it stands for Dogs for Law Enforcement. They are not in every state. They're trying, of course, to get there. If you reach out to Howard Young, he is a certifier in North Carolina for Dogs for Law Enforcement. So it's maybe something you're looking, maybe something different. You don't like some of the politics on some of the other certifying bodies.
Either way, well, we're closing in. So.
Hey, real quick, Ted, before we go, tell them what Oklahoma did.
Oh, shit. Yeah. So we had a House of Representatives member that was going to pass a bill. We were going to be the second state in the country that made heat alarms mandatory. So we kind of backdoored it a little bit, so we didn't have to have legislative involvement. with a lot of pressure from my end and from our Drug Dog Advisory Council and our Explosive Dog Advisory Council to our CLEAT board, which is basically like your OPATA board. They have taken because we have a state certification here in Oklahoma. And in our administrative rules, and I think in section 12 on that, it says, it kind of outlines that the car should have a heat alarm. It should work at this temperature. It should do this. It should do this. It should do this. And we changed it to shall. And then now we're going to require that at every recert and new certification, the handlers will have to demonstrate that the heat alarm works. So before, and the question we kind of got was, well, what's the punishment? I'm like, the punishment for not having it is you don't get to work. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You can't certify. You can't run the dog in the state. So, it's like a 30-second test beforehand. So to even test, it's rolling out January 1st, 2027. Or 2026.
So that's signed?
It's done. It's a done deal. January 1st, 2026 or 2027. So, and if you're in Oklahoma and you hear this, it's going to be a rolling calendar date, right? So if you certify in, October, November, December of this year, you have a year to get back up on, your next recert will be a mandatory heat alarm test. It needs to be tested a couple times a month, or, when it's hot, especially, but, I hope this will at least help. We've had
force these sheriffs and these chiefs.
To put the heat alarms in the car. So, But so Tony, thanks for coming on, man. Where can we get a hold of you at?
Workingk9.ca. Working letter K number 9.ca, and the email address is there, workingk9@hotmail.com.
Cool. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes, so it'll pop up on YouTube, iTunes, and
Guys,
YouTube. And all
get
that
in there
stuff,
and keep checking in, refreshing until he gets that vest up there. I'm telling you, that thing was freaking sick.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. It was definitely neat when he sent it to me. I was like, oh, that's a novel idea. I was like, that's cool. So, because we have a vest that I actually sold to somebody that we can't talk about, but that's it's a cool innovation. So, and I'm at the same place I've always been, Torchlight, everywhere, and Ted_Summers and HRD Police K9, working _dog_radio, and then of course Oil Capital Canine Fund for our Absolute Zero Heat Alarm program and that kind of stuff. So yeah, and Eric is at Van Ness Canine. If you want to see pets, Ridgeside Canine, Ohio.
Welcome to Working Dog Radio.